Hey, painting video for Mr. Draigo. First name Kaldor, not Ivan. Right, okay, so essentially I'm going to come straight in with Runefang Steel as my primary base colour. And I've watered down this metallic quite a bit so that it will flow, because there's lots, because they've packed on the detail in this particular miniature, so you want the paint to be able to flow into everywhere when you're painting without having to keep grabbing your brush into it. Whoops, sorry. And potentially really mess up your bristles. So I'm popping this on. I'm not being too careful, but I'm not being too slapdash either. Now I'm painting over the bits that I'm going to paint gold as well to give it a brighter base. And essentially I'm going to take this all over the model, avoiding any large areas that don't need to be painted silver. So come back in a sec and hopefully we'll have 2 coats down, because it's going to need 2 coats. Have 2 coats down and we can take it from there. So what I'm going to do, I know these days they've released a new paint called Granite Steel. That's not something that I've purchased, and previously when we had the Grey Knights release, when they were first released or refreshed, you basically put down a silver and then painted a blue wash. So I've got Drakenhof Nightshade that I've thinned down, and that is going to go over the majority of the plain silver panels to add a slight blue tint, and also wash into the recesses. So all I've got is Drakenhof Nightshade. I've just added in a reasonable amount of water, and I don't want to lay it on too heavy, so if it is too heavy I will push it around, but at the same time you don't want it too thin. And this will be, sorry I keep knocking the camera, this will be how I tint my armour blue. So come back and this will all be done, and hopefully it will be a nice blue. If it dries and you're not happy because you haven't put enough on, always thin it more than perhaps you might think you need, because you can always add in either a second layer once your first layer is dried. If you keep it, you know, so rather than it being a full-on wash, you use it as more of a suggestion, and you just build it up with successive highlights or successive passes of the thin, like a glaze really, that was the word I was looking for. So you do it like that, but this is how it was done previously before they came up with the Grey Knights Steel, and this is how I'm going to do it on this occasion. Right, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in all the jointing for the armour. So on Kaldor Draigo, you've got some quite large armour joints on him, which obviously will look better painted. I'm using Corvus Black because I don't think it's as harsh a colour against the silver blue of the armour. And I'm also going to paint the cables this colour. Now, certainly the ribbed cables are going to stay Corvus Black. I haven't decided if I'm going to add in a different colour for the smooth cables. But these cables will be painted for the same on both arms, because the shield arm has some cables there, quite large. Sorry, completely forgot to turn the telly off. Got Blacklist on if you were interested. So, and again. So I'm going to work round doing what I want to do black with the Corvus Black. And then we're going to come in with the Balthazar Gold from there. Okay. Stop it. Right, I'm then going to come in and start painting up the cloak and the tabard, and my paint of choice for better coverage in getting a white down is Ulthuan Grey. Although it says it's a layer, it really behaves like a base, and it's a really nice paint. So I'm going to do obviously the back of the cloak here, and then the insides will be red, and then obviously I've got the front of the cloak, and we've got a chain with a medallion on it, so just obviously be careful. It's not too much of an issue if you go over it, because you can obviously tidy up the details, but obviously the neater you are, the less you have to worry about doing that. So come back and we'll get 2 coats of this Ulthuan Grey onto the tabard and the back. Going to look to get a base of corn red down as well, in between waiting for coats to dry on the white. So just be super careful with this, because you're going to be going right up to the armour. Yeah, and just be really careful with the red, because as I say, you're going to be going right up to the armour, and I would recommend switching out your brush for a much finer detail brush as you get closer. So, okay, so I've done the cloak. So Ulthuan Grey and Corn Red currently, and then I've gone round and done any other red details that I need to do. So don't also forget, when you do this, there are borders around the pages of the books that are like on part of the iconography, so you might want to just line those round with red as you do that. I've got one on this tilt shield in here, which I think is going to be a real pain to get to, but I've also segmented. This is from pictures that I've seen. Kaldor Draigo's personal heraldry looks like it's white one side, red the other, so that's what I've gone with for now on the tilt shield. Now then, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go around and do all the scroll work and ribbons and purity seals with XxxX stone. I find this quite a nice. I used to use Zandri dust, but I've come over to XxxX stone and tend to find I like this a lot better. So when you're painting the books, some of the books have like etchings, embossed etchings on them. So this one I think has a inquisitorial eye, and then some of the others have different symbols etched into them as well. So just don't fill these up too much. And then there's a ribbon that curls around this sword on the shield. We've got some purity seals, and so on. And I'm obviously work my way around the model and do all of those. Now, with the purity seals, I am going to give them a coat of Screamer Pink. So you're probably not going to need to get too much of this out onto your palette, to be quite honest, because there's not that many. Well, there are plenty, but they're quite small. So yeah, again, just work round. Just work round the purity seals and dot in all the wax. And then once you've done that, the only thing I'm going to do additionally is paint the handle on his sword with Screamer Pink as well. So come back and we will have done all of those little bits ready for the next stage. So we've gone round, we've done all the purity seals, we've done all the scroll work, we've done all the parchment. Don't forget where he has his book to do the leaves of the pages, the edges of the pages, as you can see in there. And obviously bits and pieces around. Right, the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to use white scar to paint the white on his robes, but leave the Ulthuan Grey in the deepest recesses. Now, I'm not going to put anything on the white apart from obviously just the white. Quite simply because I think that trying to do a wash on it will make it look too dirty. So we're going to go in and just leaving the deepest recesses in the Orthwin grey. Will hopefully give it enough shade. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm not going to go right up to the edge of the chain and medallion here, so there's a natural demarcation. And we have some folds in the cloth here that benefit with just the highest ridges there being done. And I'm literally just going to, just on the inside here, and then obviously I'll get another coat on top of that and take it from there. So come back in a second, that'll be done. Right, now, so the corn red on the cloak was only a base coat, and the corn red on his Stormbolt is only a base coat. So I'm now just going to come in with Mephiston red, but I'm going to leave some corn red in the deeper recesses along the back side of the cloak. So that is essentially I laid down the corn red to give me a fairly good even coat when I came to the Mephiston red. Is it still called Mephiston red? Yeah, it is. And I'm just trying to get a straight demarcation line now. So I'm going to finish off this brighter red on my cloak. Come back in a sec. Right, I'm now coming in with Deathcore Drab. So all my Marines, it doesn't matter whether they're Terminators, whether they're Dark Angels, whether they're Grey Knights, Sisters, all the grenades, where they're a standard issue frag or crack grenade, are always painted green. My crack grenades I paint green, and then because they've got that embossed ring around the centre of them, I paint that yellow to indicate that it's a crack grenade. And then magazines on bolters and things on storm bolters, etc. I generally paint depending on the type of weapon or the army. I quite often will paint green, the drab green, because to me it's like just a standard issue colour from the Forge world. So just going to come in, do this on the magazine for the Storm Bolter. And then I can only really notice a crack grenade, so I'm going to obviously paint that. Right, first shade I'm going to come in with is XxxX Earthshade. I'm going to use this to cover all the gold, all the parchment, and the red of the cloak only, because I think that going over the red with a black is quite harsh. So I will only use a brown wash on the red cloaks unless there's a specific look I'm going for. So yeah, all the gold and parchment are going to get done. If you put too much on, just wick it up and move it about. Now the parchment I found using the Carrack stone, I think works a lot better. Better than Zandri dust, especially once you've put a wash on it and then use something like Wraithbone to highlight it with, or if you so wish you can do a very broad going over again, leaving recesses with the Carrack stone and then highlight with the Wraithbone. So yeah, I'm going over everything that's gold with XxX Earthshade, and then I'm going to do the red that's on the cloak with XxX Earthshade. And that is my colour of choice for shading the gold. I'm also going to go over the Scream of Pink as well with the XxX. So come back and hopefully all that will be done. Then I'm going to quite liberally on the metal of the Storm Bolter, I'm going to quite liberally use Nuln Oil just to obviously make it look, because I haven't used Lead Belcher, you know, I've just stuck with the Runefang Steel base coat for the Storm Bolter, so the metallic parts on that are going to get quite a liberal coating. I may even come in and do 2 just to obviously give it a more gunmetal look. And the magazine casing is getting a black wash. I'm going to give the handle of the sword, the hilt, a coat of Nuln Oil. The other thing that's going to get Nuln Oil is the frag grenade and the psych out grenade that are on his belt. So these two get that, and then he has a chain on the white tabard, over the white tabard, so that very gently going to put in some Nuln Oil just to shade the chain, hopefully not get too much onto the white tabard. Like that. So those were the main parts that I've done. All the red book covers have been done with the XxX Earthshade. The cloak's been done with the XxX Earthshade, and all of the gold has been done with XxxX Earthshade. So this needs to be set aside to dry properly now, and then we'll come back to it and start highlighting up the gold. Right, so whilst the wash is mostly dry, it's certainly dry on the red cloak bits that I've done, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in and use Mephiston Red again as a highlight. So essentially I'm going to highlight the extreme edges, but also any raised details. So I'm just going to come in and add a highlight. So this crests around about there, so I'm just adding in a highlight down the center there, and obviously we've done the edge. This side, I'm just going to come down the edge and also edge highlight along the bottom, and then we've got a central sort of like crease here that's going to get the red coming down it like that, and then basically I'm just going to work my way around and do the rest in that manner. And then the final highlight for the red is going to be some Evil Sun Scarlet. And that's just going to be the extreme edges. I've also obviously highlighted up the Storm Bolter. So that's just going to get the extreme edge highlights done now. And then the cloak. And then that's all for the red. Right, so we're back to the Screamer Pink now, which I'm just going to use to highlight the raised areas of the purity seals, because obviously they've been darkened down quite a bit with the XxX Earthshade. So all of these are literally just going to get a very, like, just right the way around the edge here. Most of them are quite small, so they're literally just going to get touched in around the edges, and I'm not going to do a solid line for them. If you know, I'm just going to sort of like look at it, probably do it in a broken pattern around the edge so that there's still some darker touches. There's also on this purity seal on the book, I forgot to mention that on the book here I've also highlighted up the edges as well, but I didn't, this I kept corn red on the cover, and the edges have just had Mephiston Red and the Evil Sun Scarlet done. So we got some purity seals just here on the sword. Obviously we've done the ones on the pauldrons, and then we've got a few on here. There's a couple just this side. Like so. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add in a little bit of Ulthuan Grey to that mix, just to brighten it up a little bit. And then just on the very topmost part of the purity seal, I'm just going to add in an extreme highlight. So where the purity seal is, you know, the top part, then I'm just going to add in a little bit on those. Don't forget the ones underneath here. Some banded highlights on the sword handle. So I think that's everything on there, and then just these last few here. Like so. Right, so that's that. I'm then going to come in with a little bit of Carrick Stone to just edge in some details on all the purity seals and parchments. And then I'm going to give a final highlight on all of those with the Wraithbone. So literally, so for example on this, I'm just going to, where the crease in the pages is down the centre here, so I'm just going to do that. Obviously edge highlight, not all the way around, but certainly like this top part, and just do that with the books, and then obviously just edge in all the scroll work, ribbons, purity seals. I'm also just going to lightly touch in some of the pages on the book. So what I might do is just get most of that off my brush and then just lightly just brush across, because there is some, obviously some marks which look like pages, to make it look like pages. So I'm just going to gently brush across that, and hopefully some of the paint, although we've taken most of it off, some of the paint will just highlight those little ridges on the pages. Okay, so I'm going to finish doing that, and I'll see. Right, so all the highlighting I've done, I've just gone over with a bit of carrot stone and then highlighted with the wraithbone on all the parchments, purity seals, etc. I've done the Screamer pink and obviously made it brighter and then gone in for a highlight. Highlighted all the red. So really the only thing left to do now is to highlight the gold and the blue armor. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Rune Lord Brass, and I'm gonna kind of overbrush it. So I'm going to kind of like just overbrush like that as a first highlight on all of the gold. And this will be the first highlight. So I'm going to go around and I'm going to do that on all the gold bits, all the gold writing, etc. Come back and then we're going to give that a final highlight with the Runefang steel, and then we're going to also use the Runefang steel to edge highlight the armour. So I've done that first highlight. I'm now going to come in with the Runefang steel, and this is literally I'm just literally going to pass this over to try and bring out the gold. Like so. I'm not going to go mad, just maybe one or two passes, just to try and make the lettering stand out as much as possible. Just forgot. And then obviously we've got just inside here as well, all the bits and pieces on the shoulder plates, essentially everything. You don't want too much on your brush when you do this, because you just want to highlight the lettering to try and make it stand out a bit more. So I'm going to finish off and go round, get all that done. Now that I have done the highlighting of the gold, I'm going to go around, I'm going to edge highlight the armour. So starting with the shield here, just going to go and like the embossing around the edge of the shield. And with the edge highlighting as well, this will help clean up some of the edges if you've gone over slightly with your overbrushing. And edge highlighting with the Runefang steel will be the only highlight I do for the blue powered armour. Right, so come back and we'll have this done. Okay, so I'm pretty much done with what I'm going to do. The only thing I've got left to do is try and paint the eyes in on the helmet. So I'm going to go with Macragge blue, and you're really going to need a fine tip because the eye slits The eye lenses on this are just some tiny little triangles. So I'm literally going to just paint in the triangle lens blue. Like so. Hopefully you can see that. The light I'm using, I think, is washing out the colour on the miniature. I don't think it's helping. And then I'm going to add in some white. And I'm literally just going to hopefully just do a very thin line in the lens. So that's one side, and that's the other. Just trying to determine okay, so yeah, that's all I'm going to do with the eyes. I'm not going to tempt fate and do too much, because knowing my luck, I'll really balls it up. Right, I'm going to base it. So I'm just going to paint the floor tiling grey, give it a wash, give it a dry brush highlight. The mud is just going to be painted with Mornfang brown and then highlighted up with Zandri dust. So come back in a mo and it'll be painted and finished. So he's done as far as I'm going to take him. So as I said, the base, the tile was base coated with a dark grey. In this case it was Mechanica standard grey. I then washed it with Agrax Earthshade, and I then just dry brushed it up, and the dirt around the base is literally just Mornfang brown, Zandri dust, and then Wraithbone, which is what I normally do. Just some light dry brushing on the cloak and around the feet to give obviously the appearance of dirt and dust, etc. is kicked up. But that is Kaldor Draigo as far as I'm going to take him. There may come a time where I get brave enough to start doing calligraphy on the ribbons and things like that, but I'm not there yet. Anyhow, hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Alright, take care. Bye bye.